Hi, my name is Tim Bradrick, and this is my code discussion for the Milestone 3 for my capstone project, Scoundrel Squirrels. What you see here is the Unity view of the home area, um, and that's one of the primary areas that I made some significant changes this past week. Here is some of the code that I had changed. Primarily, what I did for this area is I set up the classes to store the information, the item lists primarily. In my earlier screencast, I had related some problems that I was having with how this was set up. This was set up as a scriptable object and was requiring a, um, a create instance instruction to create the objects and so forth. What I have discovered is that if I set up the class as a as serializable, I am able to create the various objects. What I have here is the class, and then over here is the list for the master list. Because the object is now serializable, I am able to add them to a list using the new statement, and that's what I went ahead and did here. And what I have is the various objects here. I also went ahead and created some of the objects for not wearing anything. And of course, they have a price of 0. And so you got bare head, body fur, and bare feet. One of the things that I was able to do was to take out the sprite names and texture names. And what I did is in the constructor over here, what I did instead is instead of explicitly adding the sprite names and texture names, added the resources load method here. And what I did is I went into the resources and put all the sprites for the buttons as well as the dress up pictures, and I put them in here. What I have here is put the prefix BTN for a button. If you go in and see the example, well, I guess that's not showing too well. I see. I need to do some setup steps earlier in the process here. So we'll go ahead and skip that. But when you saw earlier on the game demo, the pictures in the wardrobe, those are the buttons. For example, the sneakers are closer together. If we take a look over here, the sneakers for the buttons are closer together, and the sneakers for the dress up fills up a bigger space, and they're further apart. So I had to go in and create some different sprites for the buttons. Um, and down here we have the DU for the dress up, and that's what the constructor does. I haven't yet gotten to the adventure pictures, but that's also another thing that I could add into that. Um, Now, the next major change I did was in the adventure scene. What I did is I was able to go in and reconstruct the animations that were added into, and I also added some of the other objects that I am planning in my game. And I reformatted how this works so that it could work by clicking in this scene here. So you now see the scroll scurrying up and down as well, and then you can add the different um, uh, clothing options there. Some of the major things that I had to do with this is in the prefab for the player character. Um, I have created some sub sprite areas here, and so for example, the limbs. If I had to, we needed a different sprite for the limbs so that when it's wearing clothing, you can still see this limbs. The limbs don't look like they're inside of um, the clothing, and had to go in and do that. And there's also a separate uh, sprite renderer for each of the different slots, and that was one of the most tedious processes there. Although I had all of the different animations and so forth created, I had to go and reformat them, and that was a rather tedious format or tedious process in getting all of that done. Let's see here, some of the scripts that handle these various things here. Um, let's see here. Um, let's see, in the home screen, um, the first thing that it does uh, when it goes into it is it changes and sets the animated squirrel to either gray or red, and this is the code that does that. It goes and uh, evaluates what model is being set. A gray squirrel is a 1 and a red squirrel is a 2, and it sets the sprite to whatever is appropriate depending on what type of squirrel it is, and that's how that is changed. Um, Another feature in here, let's see, let's move over here. The control of the squirrel, let's see here, I gotta actually get that. Let's see if we can pull that out. Okay. Um, Dynamically altering the clothing in the squirrel is handled through here a reskin animator. I'm not the wrong one. This is the one that determines which animation to play. The reskin animation is what I need for the dynamic altering of the clothing. The first thing it does is it goes and detects what item the squirrel is wearing, and then it goes in, again in that the resources folder. I have an additional folder called body sprites, and each sprite has been divided up, and all of the positions in the sprite sheet have been named exactly the same. So for example, the way the squirrel is sitting there is called crouched, and the different clothing, each of them is named in a similar manner. So we have crouched there, and in the orange jacket we also have crouched. So they're all named crouched, for example. And then in the code, it just goes and selects the specific sprite sheet based on the name that I pass it, and then this is the code that dynamically adjusts it. What it does is it looks for the sub sprites, all the little animation sprites, and loads them from the sprite sheet name, and it gets the components as children, and then it scans through and looks for names that have been named the same. The first thing I did is I set up the bear fur as a sprite sheet animation, and then when you're going to look for the orange jacket and green shirt and so forth, it looks for the exact same name, and this is where it is. And if it finds on this new sprite sheet a particular picture with the exact same name, it replaces it, and this is where it does that. So you're able to dynamically adjust how the clothing changes within the game. So, for example, if the player is to encounter a vendor, you would see it how the clothing looks differently immediately. Going back to the controller, let's see here. The controller, basically it sets up, it looks for the animation, the animator in the player character object, and sets the scroll type based on that, the animations in this case. And then it also measures the horizontal speed and sets a variable in the animator, and also the vertical speed. And then over here in the inspector, you can see the animator there. And if I go up here, you can see the different settings. So it starts out, the squirrel starts out as a crouching gray squirrel, and if the scroll type is checked and changed to 2, it will go from the gray crouching squirrel to the red crouching squirrel. And then all these other different features are adjusted based on how the squirrel is moving. The idle animation just happens after a number of frames, both this one and this one here. And then these here, depending on how the player moves the character, it will either display the squirrel moving up, the squirrel running left or right, or the squirrel moving down, based on the velocity that is set in that the script over there. So, for example, it will go from crouching to running downward if the horizontal speed is basically 0 or very small, and the vertical speed is negative, so it's moving down the screen, and that's what this is. So both of these numbers need to be less, and all of these are set up in very similar ways, and there's a setting that takes it back to the crouching mode, and that's how those animations are set up and controlled through the various code that I have here. One other thing that I had, the wardrobe in the home screen, because I am using the list and allocating the items in the list, the wardrobe I am able to set up using a for loop, and that's what this is here. Basically, I set a scroll view and set all the different features, including the width of the scroll bar and how big it is on the screen and so forth. And then I set all the buttons vertically, and within that vertical is the image of the item on a button, as well as the label. And then I've also I'm anticipating in different situations having to list the cost or the benefit, and that's what those items are there. I'm not using it now. And then the for loop goes through the entire list of the master item list, and this will be replaced closer to production. Instead of just the master item list, it will be the wardrobe list, and there will be an inventory list, and there will be a vendor list for the different lists of objects throughout the entire game. And I think that's a pretty thorough description of the things I did. Thanks.